Alright, hello everyone and welcome to WWE Discussion. I'm your host and WWE enthusiast, Dougie Doug. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Friday Night Smackdown, July 21st, 2023 edition. So this episode of SmackDown would see Jey Uso and Roman Reigns come face to face once again, but this time it was different. This time the match for SummerSlam was made official, and we got a special stipulation added to it. Now it sounds different, but ultimately it sounds like it's just a no holds barred match, which I'm all for that. I mean I would have been fine with a regular match, but I think having a stipulation like tribal combat could certainly add some intrigue to that match, and it's a pretty good stipulation. Also, we had the latest in the United States Championship Invitational. We have the match set for next week, and with that, we'll go ahead and get right into the action, starting with the United States Championship Invitational. Rey Mysterio winning this match. LA Knight unfortunately losing out on a U.S. title match, title shot, and it's a shame too because it looked like Knight was poised to win this one. Although the idea of Rey Mysterio versus Santos Escobar, I'm all for that matchup. Granted, I think Knight versus Escobar is also a good matchup as well, but the dynamic between Mysterio and Escobar certainly is an interesting one. Or yeah, it's just given the similarities between these two guys, I think that's a big draw for this match. So this was a well laid out match, a battle. It was a battle of good guys that kept the fans invested despite never establishing any drawn out heat segments or having any of the four competitors try to play the bad guy the whole match. The crowd was once again behind LA Knight throughout, but Mysterio, despite picking up the victory, he still managed to get applause from the audience, which I think is a testament to his connection with the audience that he's been able to retain all these years. It will be interesting to see, though, how long the crowd will, or how long the fans will tolerate WWE resisting Knight's momentum before rejecting any and every decision that does not see him emerge victorious. And that is a gripe I do have with this, is that, okay, LA Knight loses his title shot, so what is he doing at SummerSlam? There's no way you could not have this guy at SummerSlam. It was it was a shame you could not. It was disappointing, and I still don't quite get it how you couldn't find a spot for him at WrestleMania, competing in the ring. There's no way he just doesn't miss SummerSlam. So what does he do? I know there's talk about him getting a push after SummerSlam, and I'm inclined to believe that. Maybe some people don't. I think it will happen. But again, like, when you say push after SummerSlam, does that mean he's not doing anything at SummerSlam? Which seems like a miss on WWE's part. Charlotte Flair versus Io Sky. So the match was good despite a commercial break right in the middle of it. And furthermore, this match did a couple of things, or it advanced a couple stories, a couple ongoing stories. First one being the dissension within Damage Control, which is still a very present thing, and also Shotzi's revenge. She might not have made a physical appearance, but she certainly had Bayley rattled. And both are secondary stories to the women's title picture, but having secondary stories is exactly what the SmackDown Women's Division needs after some lackluster creative. So it's always good to have secondary stories. Charlotte Flair gets the win here. Don't really like seeing Io Sky take a loss, but these are the kind of matches I like them on paper. But with where both competitors are right now, Charlotte Flair challenging for the women's title at SummerSlam, and Io Sky being Miss Money in the Bank, ultimately these are two competitors who probably shouldn't be facing each other at this point in time, because ultimately somebody's got to take a loss that really shouldn't be taking a loss, but I think Io Sky will be just fine. Charlotte Flair picks up the win, and Flair versus Asuka versus Belair at SummerSlam is official, and that match is going to be a banger on what is already looking like a jam-packed card, and we only have four matches announced. Santos Escobar versus Austin Theory. So this was a non-title match, and even though it didn't make sense to book this match, give credit to Wade Barrett. He did his best to fill in the logic gap, which is certainly something WWE should have their commentators try to do more often. And Escobar would pick up the win here, building on the momentum of his victory from a week ago, pinning the U.S. champion clean in the ring, something few have done given how much WWE has actively tried to protect Austin Theory. It was a welcome change of pace as Escobar. He has a role on TV. He's consistently on TV, but all too often he's been on the losing end. So nice to see him pick up a clean victory like this, and these are the type of victories that will ultimately help him establish more of a connection with the audience, and at the very least further increase his credibility necessary to be a threat for a title, an opponent, whatever it may be. And that includes Rey Mysterio, his mentor, who he will face next week. Winner of that match goes on to challenge Austin Theory. So yeah, Escobar, nice little role for himself. I'm very curious to see how that one gets booked. Do you go with Mysterio or do you go with Escobar? I would go with Escobar, run it back with Escobar versus Theory, and just, yeah, I mean, no disrespect to Rey Mysterio, but I feel like it's more advantageous to have Escobar winning here. And then the show concludes with Roman Reigns' rules of engagement for SummerSlam. And Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. The match is now official. It is set. It is tribal combat, where not only is the title on the line, but the role of tribal chief is also on the line. So I talked about this at the top. Did the match need a stipulation? No. But is this a good stipulation for it? Yes. So it works. Yeah, no, it's basically, like I said, no holds bar, anything goes. The choice of the Bloodline Elders, according to Jey Uso, and apparently the only way issues between these two were going to be settled. So the tone for this segment is certainly different than the segment last week with Jey Uso. Last week, Jey was passionate and defiant, and here in this segment, he was seemingly torn once again, uncertain if what he was doing was the right decision. And I think the biggest difference between last week and this week, Reigns being present, which shows that perhaps there is still some control that Roman Reigns has over Jey Uso, that makes him doubt himself. When Jey's not in the presence of Tribal Chief, he's more confident, but when he is in the presence of the Tribal Chief, the confidence kind of takes a bit of a hit. So we'll see what kind of moment we have at SummerSlam with Jey Uso. Right? Where is that confidence going to be when that match starts? And will he be able to overcome self-doubt at SummerSlam? We shall see how that one plays out. Find my spot here on my script. Skipping over things, haven't been reading it line for line. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's Jey Uso. There's another element at play here. Not Jimmy Uso, although he could certainly come into play at SummerSlam, but rather it's the unpredictable Solo Sikoa, who attempted to lay out Uso to wrap things up, only to be stopped by Reigns, who, I'm guessing this was kind of like an honor thing in regards to tribal combat. I've heard that thrown around. But also, Reigns might be growing concerned with Solo's hair trigger and perhaps desire to be Tribal Chief himself. There are plenty of chapters to this story left to be told, but even so, SummerSlam is shaping up to be an unforgettable night thanks to this feud, which is probably going to be the most emotionally charged match on the card. We already know Roman Reigns. The storytelling in his matches are what makes them so good, so you know this is going to be a good story. They had a good story going in their match back in 2020, so there's no reason to think the storytelling in this match isn't going to be able to, at the very least, match that. I would argue that it would top it. So in conclusion, this episode of SmackDown may have been headlined by the promo segment that made Uso versus Reigns official for SummerSlam, but it was probably more well defined by the in-ring content, which was strong. You had that fatal four-way to start the show, fun match, Flair versus Guy, a match that highlighted chemistry between those two. Escobar and Theory, another fun match. So having longer than normal matches that advance stories, it's a good thing to have on the show. There's no need to rush through matches. There's no need to kind of shorten things up. Either you have time for it or you don't. Either it makes sense or it doesn't. All too often, I think we see matches thrown on the card, and while they're short and sometimes it makes sense, ultimately matches that should be featured are ones that you can give a little bit of time to because you're trying to tell a story. And then you add in a noteworthy announcement of tribal combat for that Uso versus Reigns match, and this show accomplished the goal at hand by remaining focused on building to the second biggest premium level event of the year. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of WWE Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.